we were using a device off-labeled, and we noticed through review of our QI data that our failure rate in this procedure had gone down remarkably. So, in medicine, in order to prove that one technique is better than another, we like to do randomized controlled clinical studies. So we look towards going forward with that and producing a protocol where we could do this technique in a randomized controlled blinded fashion, comparing the traditional methods of placement versus the off-labeled use of this device to show, hopefully demonstrate, that this would be a more efficacious way of placing the device. I went to the IRB with the protocol, and I knew that somewhat through the haze of government regulations that this device was not approved for the use that we're using it for to place this device. I knew that there's a potential that if I was going to use it in a study, there might be extra hurdles that I need to go through, but I was not familiar with what those hurdles might be. So I talked with the IRB, and they felt that since this device uses an electrical current, that it was a significant risk device and that I would need to proceed with getting some input from the FDA, which I had never had any interactions with in the past. And being a single investigator with very limited resources as far as research support, at first I felt like this task was going to be daunting or overwhelming, so I seek some guidance from the folks at the IRB how I should proceed with going forward with to determine how to get approval from the FDA. I got guidance as to which forms I needed to submit a study risk determination for this device, and I was able to use some of our pilot data from the off-labeled use to show that we had had no complications as far as placing this device, which served as a data set to show that this device was going to be safe to use. And I submitted the protocol along with this data. I received their recommendation that they felt like this was a significant risk device, which at first I felt was frustrating, but they quickly responded when I asked as to what I should do as far as submitting an IDE, and that the majority of the paperwork or submission for an IDE was also contained in a study risk determination, that there was just a small amount of additional paperwork that I needed to add to that, which I put together and submitted back. And then within a 30-day time frame, I received a response from them that they would go ahead and grant me a IDE for this device. There were some additional contacts, and they had some questions in regards to the protocol. They were minor revisions that they asked for. They asked for some additional product information for the device, which I was able to obtain from the manufacturer's website. There was also some questions about how we were going to assess the complications that might be associated afterwards, after the device was placed, because these devices stay in for several days. And I was able to quickly answer and get them their responses in a timely manner. So the whole process still stayed within the 30-day window of response. They said that as a sponsor-initiated investigator, that my obligation is that we have to track all complications that might be associated with the device, and these are delineated in the study protocol, and that was one of the questions, that what type of complications that we might expect to see with this type of device. And then at various time points during the while the study is ongoing, we have to submit reports about any complications that might take place during the study trial. The IRB approval was rather quick, because I had already been in contact with the IRB and asked their advice along the way as far as how they felt the risk was, and that the fact that I needed to go to the FDA. And since I had pretty much polished the protocol for all the FDA submission, and the fact that it had an IDE and the government agency had weighed in on the protocol itself, the IRB process was much quicker than I would have expected, since they had the reassurance that it had been looked at by another regulatory agency. It was very nice that I had a point person that I could go through to help me weed through the, I would say, online bureaucracy of a federal government agency, because just trying to find the correct forms and documents on my own would have been a daunting task in itself, and having the ability to go to a person who could show me the specific documents and answer questions in regards to those documents sped up the process. And to be honest with you, if I hadn't had that, I probably would have just given up, because I don't have any research coordinators. I had to put this all together on my own and submit it. So I don't know how I would have accomplished that without those resources available to me.